Today we're painting one of Queensland's most iconic architectural characters, an elevated worker's cottage with its beautiful front veranda drenched in morning sun. These old timber homes are full of personality. The repetition of those white railings, the warm terracotta trim, the deep porch shadows. Let's begin. Stage 1. Pencil construction and sky wash. I'm using A for B. Pencil very lightly, just enough to find my perspective lines. Notice I'm working from roughly 2/3 of the way up the page. The foreground retaining wall needs space. The key vanishing point sits somewhere off the right edge of the paper. I'm not ruling lines. I want the sketch to breathe. Before that pencil is even dony, I'm mixing a wash of cerulean blue with a touch of Payne's gray. The sky in this painting is a supporting actor, pale and warm, not dramatic. My board is tilted at about 15 degrees. Wet the sky area with clean water, then drop the wash in from the top. Let it settle. No fussing. Stage 2, roofline and terracotta. First wash while that sky is still drying. Let's mix our terracotta. This is the color that will warm the entire painting. Get it right, and everything else falls into place. Burnt sienna is my base. With just a whisper of cadmium orange and a tiny amount of yellow ochre, I want it saturated and decisive. The roof fascia runs across the upper portion. I'm painting it as one connected shape, not section by section. Follow the perspective angle without hesitation. Then the gable pediment above the entry, that lovely decorative triangle, gets the same warm wash. Notice how the sunlit side of the fascia is almost golden, while the underside in shadow is a deeper, redder sienna. I'll drop that darker mix wet into wet while the first wash is still alive. The eave guttering catches the warm light to a thin line of raw sienna along its top edge. Stage 3. Sunlit wall planes. The cool light astral. Now the walls, and this is where watercolor rewards your restraint. The brightest sunlit weatherboards are the white of the paper itself. I'm not painting them. I'm painting everything around them. Asterisk mix, a very dilute wash of cerulean. Blue with a breath of raw sienna. This gives us that beautiful Queensland glare light color. The kind of light that bounces off a white timber house in the morning. It will look almost too pale in the palette. Trust it. The main front wall is one flat wash. The entry vestibule, that lovely projecting box form, catches even more direct light, so its face is almost paper white. I'm leaving those boards nearly dry. On the left-hand wall, angled away from the sun, I'm using a slightly cooler, bluer version of the same wash. Notice the shadow stripes across the lower wall from the veranda railings. I'm not painting individual railings yet. I'm simply leaving soft vertical dry paper strips within the wash as I pull it down. The eye will read them as railings, even at this loose stage. Stage 4, the Great Shadow Mass. Here is the most exciting and most important stage, the deep porch shadows. These are the dramatic dark masses that make the sunlit whites sing. Don't dilute your courage here. My shadow mix, Payne's gray as the base, with French ultramarine for richness and depth, and a touch of burnt sienna to stop it going too cold and dead. This shadow has warmth in it. You can see hints of ochre reflected from the ground plane, bouncing up into the underside of the veranda ceiling. The left veranda ceiling and wall recess is one single connected shape, a deep blue-gray mass. Paint it decisively. The shadow under the eaves across the top follows the same mix. Then the deep recessed shadow behind the entry door and windows. Those interior glimpses are almost black. So I'm adding more Payne's gray here and letting it go quite dark. The window glazing reflects back some of the warm sky and orange trim. I'm dropping a dilute burnt sienna into the wet shadow on those glass areas, letting the two colors merge softly. Now the beautiful part, the railing balusters. Rather than painting every white baluster, I paint the shadows between them and the dark forms behind them. The white railings appear because I haven't touched them. That is the heart of watercolor, painting the negative space. Stage 5 Foreground. Retaining wall and earth, the foreground needs to be warm and textural without competing with the architecture above. We're looking at a typical Queensland street scene: concrete retaining blocks, dry earth, a hint of hardy vegetation working its way through the cracks. I'm laying in a base wash of raw sienna with yellow across the entire foreground zone. While that's wet, I'm dropping in some burnt sienna and raw umber, the deeper shadow areas and beneath the stairs. The concrete retaining blocks are painted with a cool gray. Payne's gray diluted with plenty of water, with a hint of cerulean. Their tops catch the light, so those horizontal edges are left as the ochre wash alone, no additional pigment. The shadow lines between each course of blocks are a slightly more concentrated version of the wall shadow mix. The stair treads and risers sit in deep shadow panes gray with burnt sienna. The diagonal stringer catches warm, raking light, raw sienna stroked directly over the dry base wash. I'm adding a suggestion of dry grass and scrubby vegetation with a mix of yellow, ochre, and sepia. Using a dry brush technique, loading the brush and dragging it sideways across the rough paper surface, so only the tooth of the paper catches the pigment. Stage 6 Architectural Detail and Accent Strokes. Now the fun part, the details that make this recognizably a Queenslander rather than any old timber house. I'm switching to my no dot to rigger brush for the fine line work. The rigger holds a long, tapered point that is perfect for the slender vertical balusters and window glazing bars. First, the railing balusters. I'm using a concentrated mix of Payne's gray and burnt sienna for the shadow sides of each baluster, and a dilute burnt sienna for the warm light side catches. Critically, I'm not painting every single one. I paint a cluster of 3 or 4, skip 2, paint 1 more. The eye fills in the rest. Selective detail reads as complete detail. The window glazing bars are fine lines of that same dark mix just suggested. It's not architectural. 3 or 4 horizontal lines and 2 verticals per window. Opening is sufficient. The awning stripes are alternating bands of the terracotta mix in paper white. I drag my flat wash brush across with a dry brush pressure, letting the alternating stripe pattern describe the canvas awning, the decorative bracket under the gable pediment. That lovely timber fretwork is 4 or 5 confident dark strokes. The newel posts at the top and bottom of the stair get a warm ochre face and a Payne's gray shadow side, the outdoor light. Fitting on the veranda wall, a tiny burnt sienna shape, with a darker Payne's gray center, gives a lovely narrative. Detail without overstating itself. These small marks tell a story about the life that happens inside. And here is the most important instruction of all. Put the brush down. This is the moment to resist adding more. A painting that asks questions is more interesting than one that answers all of them. Stage 7, final review. I'm going to hold the painting at arm's length now, or better yet, prop it up against the wall and walk away for 2 minutes. Fresh eyes reveal everything that familiarity has hidden. I'm checking the tonal structure first. Do the darks read as one connected family? Is there a clear path from the deepest shadow in the veranda recess through to the lighter midtones of the retaining wall? If the shadows look like isolated patches rather than a connected design, a unifying glaze will fix it next. The warm-cool balance, the terracotta roofline, should feel warm against the cool blue-gray walls. And those cool walls should feel cool against the even warmer foreground earth. 3 distinct temperature zones. If anything has drifted out of temperature, a single thin glaze of the opposing temperature will correct it. If the foreground feels too heavy and is pulling attention from the building, I can lift some of the color while it's still slightly damp. A clean, damp, flat brush pressed firmly and lifted away will recover a lighter value. If I've lost a crisp paper-white edge that I needed a railing top, the sunlit stringer, a small amount of white watercolor, used with a fine brush and a light touch, is an acceptable last resort. Watercolor purists will argue. I'll just say it's a tool like any other. Thank you so much for painting along today. If you had a go at this, please leave a photo of your result in the comments. I genuinely love seeing how different every interpretation is. Until next time, sing